I was 37 years old, lying in a hospital bed with tubes running out of my arms, and a husband who'd chosen someone else's emergency over mine for the last time, when I realized I'd spent 14 years trying to earn a love that was never meant to be given freely. The car accident had been my fault. Not legally. The truck ran a red light, but I'd been arguing with Nathaniel on the phone when it hit. He was late again. He was always late. And I was always calling, always checking, always making sure he remembered I existed. The last thing he said to me before the impact was, "Ellie, I'm exhausted. You need to stop needing so much." Then the world went white. When I woke up in the ER, he wasn't there. A nurse told me he'd signed the consent forms and left. Said he had an important meeting. Said he'd be back. He wasn't. I spent 3 days in that hospital alone, and my sister Penelope came, and my mother flew in from Seattle. But Nathaniel sent flowers, a massive arrangement of white roses that I knew his assistant had ordered, with a card that read, "Get well soon. Work is crazy." For years of marriage, 14 years of knowing him, and that was all I was worth to him. A card, a signature, a task to check off. I lay in that bed and let myself feel every single thing I'd been swallowing for over a decade. The evenings he'd canceled last minute, the birthdays he'd missed. The way he'd look at me sometimes, like I was a problem he'd never quite figured out how to solve. And I thought about the one thing he'd never missed, the woman we'd never talked about. Lillian Corbin, his mentor's daughter, the woman he'd drop everything for, the woman he'd stay up all night with when she had anxiety attacks. The woman who'd been living in our guest room for the past 8 months because her apartment was being renovated. I never said a word. I convinced myself I was being gracious, understanding, the kind of wife who didn't make a fuss. But in that hospital bed, I stopped convincing myself. The day I was discharged, I went home. Lillian was in the kitchen, wearing one of my robes, making tea. She smiled when she saw me. "Ellie, I'm so glad you're back." Nathaniel was so worried. Nathaniel had called me once in 3 days. Once. And it had been a text. I didn't say anything. I just walked past her, went to our bedroom, and started packing. That was 6 months ago. Now I'm 38, and I've been living in New York for 4 months, working at a boutique strategy firm that actually values my skills. I've got a tiny apartment in Brooklyn, a cat I rescued from the shelter, and a new habit of not asking anyone for permission. I'm also, apparently, the subject of a very awkward conversation with my ex-husband. "Ellie." Nathaniel's voice comes through the phone, tinny and strange. "I've been trying to reach you." "You have my number," I say. "You changed it." "I did. I'm not going to apologize. I changed it after the 3rd time," he called to ask if I'd figured things out yet. "Ellie, I'm in New York. I need to see you." I look at my coffee. It's gone cold. I pour it out and start a fresh pot. "Why?" Because he stops. I can picture him running a hand through his hair, the way he used to when he was frustrated. "Because we need to talk." "We talked. You said I was too much." I agreed. "Now I'm less." "That's not." He exhales, sharp and loud. "Ellie, can I please come over?" I think about it and I think about the version of me who would have said yes immediately. The version who would have canceled plans, rearranged her whole day, just to have the chance to sit in the same room as him. She's not the one answering the phone anymore. "No," I say, "but there's a coffee shop on Hudson Street. I'll meet you there tomorrow at 10. If you're late, I won't wait." I hang up before he can argue. The coffee shop is small, with mismatched furniture and a barista who knows my name and my order. I'm there at 9:45. Nathaniel walks in at 10:02. "I'm not late," he says, reading my face. My watch says, "It's fine." I gesture at the chair across from me. "Sit." He's wearing a suit that probably cost more than my first year's rent. He looks tired, but he always looks tired. That's not new. "Ellie, I know I handled things badly." "You handle them exactly the way you handle everything. You put the person who doesn't ask for anything first, and you left the person who used to ask for everything behind." "That's not a mistake. Nathaniel, that's a pattern." His jaw tightens. "You left." "I did, because you made it very clear that Lillian's crises were more important than my actual hospitalization." He shifts in his seat. "She had a panic attack. She was spiraling. You know what she's been through." I've heard this speech before. Lillian's tragic backstory has been Nathaniel's favorite shield for years. Her father died when she was 20. She has anxiety. She has abandonment issues. She needs understanding and patience and endless reserves of compassion. And what do I have? A job I'm good at. A marriage I've been fighting for alone. A capacity for swallowing my own needs until I choke. "Lillian isn't your wife." I say. "You divorced me, or do you not remember that?" "I didn't sign the papers." I blink. "What?" "I didn't file. I thought you were just reacting. I thought you'd come back." The audacity of it would almost be impressive if it weren't so deeply, profoundly insulting. "So, you just let me leave? Let me move to a different state? Let me rebuild my entire life, and you didn't sign anything because you thought I'd come crawling back." He has the grace to look uncomfortable. "I thought we needed time. What we needed was for you to pick me. Just once. Just once in 14 years, I needed you to look at me and decide that I was worth the effort." His face is pale now. "Ellie, I'm sorry." "You're always sorry. You apologized at the hospital. You apologized on the phone. You're apologizing now. But you never change. You never choose differently." I take a sip of my coffee. It's perfect. The barista knows me better than my ex-husband ever did. "Here's the thing, Nathaniel, that I spent 14 years asking. Asking for your time, your attention, your consideration. Did I ask you to notice me? Did I ask you to care? Did I ask you to show up? And you showed me, over and over, that asking doesn't work. I stopped." He's staring at me like I've spoken a language he can't translate. "Stopped what?" "Asking. I stopped asking for help. I stopped asking for your opinion. I stopped asking you to care. I stopped putting my needs in your hands and hoping you'd hold them gently. You just left. I didn't leave. I stopped waiting. There's a difference. I stand up. I put a 20 on the table, even though I know he'll pay for both of us. He always does, because that's the kind of gesture that costs him nothing. I'm dating someone, I say. His head snaps up. What? His name is Adrian. He works at my firm. He's kind, he's thoughtful, and he doesn't make me beg for his attention. Nathaniel stands up too, his chair scraping against the floor. Ellie, you're still married to me. The marriage ended when you left me in a hospital bed. The paperwork is just a formality. He reaches for my hand. I pull it back. Ellie, please, give me another chance. I'll do better. I'll be better. You've had 14 years, Nathaniel. You've used them all. I walk out of the coffee shop and don't look back. The morning sun is warm on my face, and for the first time in months, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. 3 weeks after that conversation, I receive an email from Nathaniel's lawyer. He's finally filed. I sign the papers without reading them. Then I send Nathaniel one last message. I'm not angry. I'm not waiting. I'm done. I hope you find the person you were always looking for, but it's not going to be me. He writes back, Who is Adrian? I don't answer. Adrian is the man who noticed I was limping after my surgery, even though I never mentioned it. He's the one who started leaving coffee on my desk every morning, black with a splash of oat milk, exactly the way I like it. He's the one who walked me home when I had a migraine, even though he lives in the opposite direction. He's the one who looked at me at the office holiday party and said, You don't have to be brave with me. I almost cried. I didn't, but I almost did. What do you mean? I asked. I mean you're always waiting for the other shoe to drop, like you're scared to need anything, like asking for something would be a betrayal. I laughed. That's surprisingly insightful for someone I just met. I've been watching you for 4 months, he said. I've been waiting to see if you'd ever let yourself be taken care of. Are you offering? I'm offering to take you on a date. A real one. And then we'll see. That date was 3 months ago. We've been seeing each other ever since. Slow and careful and surprisingly easy. He doesn't need me to perform neediness. He doesn't make me explain myself. He just shows up consistently without any drama. I don't have to ask. That's the part that still catches me off guard. I don't have to ask. He just does it. At the office, my friend Sarah notices the difference. You're smiling more, she says. Like, actually smiling. Not that tight-lipped thing you used to do. I was married to a man who made me feel like needing anything was a burden. It's taken me a while to unlearn that. You're unlearning it fast. I had help. She grins. Adrian's a good guy. I vouched for you, by the way. Told him you were worth the effort. Thanks for that. He asked me, before he asked you out. He wanted to make sure he wouldn't be overstepping. That lands somewhere deep in my chest. Adrian asked for permission. He was careful. He was considerate. Nathaniel never asked anything. He just assumed I'd wait. When I get home that night, there's a box on my doorstep. No return address. I open it inside, careful and suspicious. Inside is a small jewelry case. I open it, and my heart stops. It's a necklace. An antique locket I'd mentioned once, years ago, in passing. I pointed it out in a window on a trip we'd taken, and Nathaniel had barely glanced at it. The locket is identical, down to the tiny engraving on the back, a date that means nothing to anyone but me. I flip it over. There's a note taped to the inside. I kept a list. Every single thing you ever mentioned wanting. I was going to give you one for every anniversary. I just forgot. I'm sorry. Nathaniel. Of course it's Nathaniel. I stare at the necklace for a long time. Then I put it back in the box, close the lid, and take it to the post office. I send it back to his office address with a single piece of paper inside. Thank you for remembering, but you don't get to hold on to me anymore. The next day, I get a text from an unknown number. He's been showing up at my place, crying, saying he made a mistake. I don't know how to make him stop. Lillian. I didn't save her number, but I know it's her. Not my problem, I reply. He says he loves me. He says he's confused. I think he's trying to figure out what he wants. I stare at the message that I think about every time she took something from me. Every time her panic attacks happened at exactly the right moment to pull him away. Every time her vulnerability became a weapon that left me holding nothing. And I type, he's your problem now. I hope you enjoy it. I block her. A month later, my cousin Oliver sends me a screenshot. It's a social media post from Lillian. I'm learning to stop expecting people to save me. Healing is hard. I laugh out loud. Lillian has never stopped expecting people to save her, and Nathaniel has never stopped being the person who tries. Let them have each other. Let them be what they are. I've got better things to do. On the night I finally sign my divorce papers, the new ones, the ones Nathaniel didn't contest, Adrian takes me to dinner. A small Italian place with red checkered tablecloths and a waitress who calls me honey. To new beginnings, he says, raising his glass. I raise mine too, to not having to ask. We clink glasses. The wine is good, the food is better, but best of all is the way he looks at me, like I'm the only person in the room worth seeing. After dinner, we walk through the park. The air is cold, and I wrap my scarf tighter around my neck. Are you okay? He asks. I think I am. Finally. I mean, I was okay before, but now I'm okay without pretending. That's a good thing to be. It took me years to get here. He takes my hand. His palm is warm. It doesn't matter how long it took. You're here now. We stop walking. He turns to face me. I know things are complicated. I know you're still processing. I just want you to know, I'm not in a hurry. I'm happy to wait. I'm happy to be patient. Because you want to? Because you're worth the wait. I think about Nathaniel. How he never said that. How he always made me feel like needing time or attention was an imposition. I look at Adrian and feel something settle in my chest. Not fireworks, not a grand revelation. Just peace. I kiss him, soft and slow. He kisses me back, and I know, not with certainty, but with hope, that this time, the asking will be mutual, the giving will be equal, and the waiting won't be lonely. When I get home that night, I delete Nathaniel's contact from my phone for good. I delete the list I kept, too. The list of all the things I'd wanted him to remember. The list of all the ways I tried to make him love me. It's a short list, but it feels heavy. I drop it into the trash folder and empty it. Then I open my laptop and send Adrian a picture of the cat I rescued. She says hi. He writes back within seconds. Tell her I say hi back. I smile. I don't need to ask. Because for the first time in 14 years, someone is giving freely. And that's enough. I was 42 years old when I realized that leaving someone doesn't mean they leave you alone. It happened on a Tuesday that I was in a meeting with a client, pitching a strategy that I'd spent 2 weeks perfecting when my phone buzzed against the table and I ignored it. Then it buzzed again, and again. After the meeting, I checked the screen. 17 missed calls from my sister Penelope. A text. Call me. It's about Nathaniel. My first thought was that he died, that IT was the kind of dread that never really goes away, even when you've stopped loving someone. You can hate someone with your whole chest and still flinch at the idea of their death. I called her back. It's not that, she said quickly. He's not dead, but Ellie, he's in rehab. His friend Marcus called Mom. He said Nathaniel's been drinking heavily since he left. He lost his job at the hospital. Something happened with Lillian too. She moved out. He's been spiraling. I sat down at my desk. Pen, I can't fix him. I've never been able to fix him. I know. I'm not asking you to. I just thought you should know. I hung up and stared at my computer screen. The numbers blurred. I rubbed my eyes and forced myself to focus. Adrian found me in the break room an hour later, staring at the coffee machine like it held the answers. You look like someone just told you your cat died, he said. Worse. I found out my ex-husband is in rehab. He was quiet for a moment, which I appreciated. I told him about Nathaniel in broad strokes, the emotional distance, the way I'd been left behind, and he listened without judgment. Do you want to talk about it? I don't think so. I poured myself a cup of coffee, but thank you for asking. If you change your mind, I'll tell you. He nodded and left me alone. No prying, no pushing. Just that quiet presence that had become more of a comfort than I'd ever expected. That's what had been different about Adrian. In 6 months, he'd never once made me feel like my emotions were an inconvenience. He'd never treated my needs like an interruption. Nathaniel had done that from the very beginning. I just hadn't noticed. Later that night, I got an email from Nathaniel himself. IT was long, rambling, and clearly written under supervision. He apologized for everything he'd ever done wrong. He listed the moments he'd missed. He admitted he'd been addicted to the feeling of being needed by someone who seemed broken, and that he'd given all of his energy to the person who asked for the most, while neglecting the one who'd asked for so little. I treated your quiet resilience like permission, he wrote. And I'm sorry. I read the email twice. Then I wrote back one line. I'm glad you're getting help. Please don't contact me again. I sent it and closed my laptop. A month later, I found out that Lillian had moved to California. She'd cut off everyone from her old life. I heard through a mutual friend that she'd checked herself into a mental health facility and was finally getting treatment for something that wasn't just anxiety. I didn't feel relief. I didn't feel anger. I just felt tired, the kind of tired that comes from carrying something heavy for too long and finally putting it down. Adrian noticed. He always noticed. Something's different, he said one night when I was making dinner in his kitchen. What do you mean? You've been lighter the past few weeks, like a weight you didn't even know you were carrying finally dropped. I think it did, I admitted. I think I finally let go of someone I should have let go of years ago. He came up behind me and wrapped his arms around my waist. I'm proud of you. For what? For not going back. For not fixing him. For choosing yourself. I leaned back into his chest and let myself breathe. Have I ever told you, I said, how grateful I am that you didn't ask me to be anything other than what I am? You tell me every day, in the way you look at me when you think I'm not paying attention. I turned in his arms and kissed him. I should have done this years ago. Done what? Loved the person who wasn't choosing me. The next 6 months were quiet, good. Adrian and I built a rhythm that felt like breathing, easy and natural, and full of small gestures that added up to something real. He learned my coffee order and never forgot it. I learned that he needed space after a long day, and I gave it without feeling abandoned. He asked about my job and listened to the answer. I asked about his family and remembered the details. I realized what a real relationship looked like. Not the frantic effort of trying to be everything to someone who couldn't be bothered to be anything to you. Then Nathaniel's sister called me. It was a Saturday morning. I was in Brooklyn, watering the plants on my fire escape, when my phone rang. Ellie, this is Beatrice. I know I have no right to call you, but Nathaniel is out of rehab and he's asking for you. He says he needs to see you one more time. He's not doing well. I put down the watering can. Beatrice, I can't be his lifeline. I've been his lifeline for 14 years, and it nearly destroyed me. I know, but he's my brother, and he's trying to change. He's been in therapy. He's been working on himself. He wants to apologize in person, properly. I thought about it. The old me would have said yes immediately. The old me would have rearranged her entire life for the chance to be seen by him one more time. The new me, she hesitated. I'll think about it, I said. No promises. Thank you, Ellie. A week later, I walked into the same coffee shop on Hudson Street, ready to have a conversation I've been avoiding for years. Nathaniel was already there. He looked older, thinner, his hair was shorter, and there were circles under his eyes that no amount of sleep would erase. He was wearing jeans and a sweater, no suit, no polish, no armor. "Thank you for coming," he said. I'm not sure why I did. He nodded like he understood. I've been doing a lot of work. In rehab, in therapy, I've been trying to figure out why I treated you the way I did. And what did you figure out? I was scared. He looked down at his hands. I was scared of how much I needed you. As though I pushed you away, I convinced myself that if I let you get too close, you'd see how broken I was and leave. So I gave myself permission to ignore you instead. I sat very still. That doesn't make it better. No, but it's the truth. I was too weak to let myself be loved, and I made you pay the price. I waited. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect anything. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. I see what I did, and I'm sorry. I looked at him. The man I'd given 14 years of my life to, the man who'd made me feel like I was never enough. He was just a man, broken and scared and full of rationalizations, not a monster. Just someone who'd been too afraid to let himself be loved. I took a breath. I forgive you, I said. Not for what you did, for the version of you that was too scared to do better. That version of you. I have compassion for that person, but I can't be part of his story anymore. Nathaniel's eyes were wet. That's more than I deserve. It's what I deserve, to let go without holding onto the anger. We sat in silence for a long moment. Then I stood up. I hope you find what you're looking for, Nathaniel. I really do, but I won't be the one to help you find it. I walked out of the coffee shop and didn't look back. That night, I told Adrian everything. The 14 years of waiting, the hospital, the slow realization that I'd been asking for something that was never going to come. You did the right thing, he said. Not just for him, for you. I know. I was sitting on his couch, my feet tucked under me. It just took me a long time to see it. He reached over and took my hand. You're here now. That's what matters. I leaned into him and let myself be held. Later, I asked him something I'd never dared to ask anyone before. Do you think I'm too much? He looked at me like I'd said something absurd. Ellie, you're not too much. You've just been giving to people who don't know how to receive. I never thought of it that way. Adrian started coming to my apartment more often, and he learned my routines, he knew when to give me space, and when to stay close. He never made me feel like an obligation, that I never had to ask for his time. He just gave it. One night, after we'd been together for nearly a year, he asked me a question that caught me off guard. Have you ever thought about moving in together? I felt my heart speed up. Are you asking? I'm asking. What would that look like? He smiled. It would look like coming home to someone who's actually happy to see you, like not having to check your phone to make sure you're not missing an emergency, like making dinner together and figuring out whose turn it is to load the dishwasher. I laughed. That sounds terrifying. Good terrifying? I thought about it. I thought about how safe I felt with him, how easy it was, how he never made me feel like I had to earn his attention. Yeah, I said. Good terrifying. The last piece of the Nathaniel chapter came a month later. I got a letter, an actual physical letter, mailed to my apartment. His handwriting was messy, but I could read it. Ellie, I'm writing this from a place I never thought I'd be. Grateful. For the years we had. For the lessons you taught me. For the person you were, and the person you became. I was the one who couldn't see you. I spent so much time trying to fix broken people that I didn't notice the whole one standing right in front of me. You're going to be okay. I know that now. You were always stronger than I gave you credit for. Thank you for letting me go. I didn't deserve you, but I'm learning how to deserve someone else. Take care of yourself. Nathaniel, I read the letter twice. Then I put it in a drawer with the other things I'd kept. Letters from my grandmother, a photo of my parents on their wedding day, a postcard from a trip I'd loved. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't closure. It was just acceptance. I didn't write back. I didn't need to. 2 weeks later, I moved in with Adrian. It wasn't dramatic. It was just practical. He had more space, better light, and a couch that was actually comfortable. The first morning, I woke up in his bed and thought about how strange it was to wake up without the weight of someone else's emotional gravity pressing down on me. Adrian brought me coffee, black, with a splash of oat milk. Good morning. Good morning. You look like you're thinking. I was thinking about how I used to wake up and wonder if I'd be enough today, and now I don't wonder that anymore. He sat down beside me. Why not? Because I don't have to prove anything to you. You just want me to be here. He kissed my forehead. That's the only thing I've ever wanted. And I realized that I'd finally arrived. Not at a destination. Not at a perfect life. Just at a place where I didn't have to perform or prove or beg. I could just be. And that was enough. I was 47 when Claire started kindergarten, and I realized that my life had become something I never allowed myself to imagine. It wasn't perfect. There were still days when I felt the weight of everything I'd carried, the years of waiting, the loneliness, the slow erosion of my sense of self. But those days came less often now, and they stayed for shorter visits. Claire was the best decision I'd ever made. She had Adrian's patience and my stubbornness, a combination that made her both easier and harder to raise than I'd expected. She asked questions constantly, questioned everything, and never accepted because I said so as an answer. You're going to be a lawyer, Adrian told her one night at dinner. No, I'm going to be a scientist. I'm going to discover things. What kind of things? Things that nobody knows yet. I watched her, this small person who'd come for me, and felt a swell of something I couldn't name. Pride, wonder, the strangeness of watching a part of yourself grow into someone wholly separate. Mom, why are you looking at me like that? Because you remind me of myself. Is that good? I laughed. It's the best thing. That was the difference, I realized. When I'd been Claire's age, I'd been trying to be small, trying to be easy. Trying to be the kind of daughter who didn't make waves, the kind of girlfriend who didn't ask for too much. Claire was the opposite. She asked for everything. She took up space. She made her needs known without apology. And I was determined to keep it that way. One night, when Claire was in bed and Adrian was working late, I found myself scrolling through old photos on my phone. There were pictures from before I'd left Nathaniel, before I'd moved to New York, before I'd become someone who didn't need to be saved. I looked different in those pictures. Not older, exactly, just more guarded. I was smiling in most of them, but the smile never reached my eyes. I scrolled further and found a photo I'd almost forgotten IT was from my wedding to Nathaniel, a candid shot taken by one of his friends. I was looking at him like he was the sun. He was looking at something else, the camera, maybe, or the horizon. The asymmetry of it hit me like a punch to the chest. I'd been giving so much, and he'd been receiving, but never giving back. I closed the photo and deleted it. "You look like you're thinking too hard," Adrian said, coming through the door. He was carrying takeout and looking tired. I was just going through old pictures. Found one from my wedding. He set down the food. "That sounds like a dangerous activity." It was, but I'm okay. He sat beside me on the couch. "What did you find?" "I found proof that I was in love with someone who wasn't capable of loving me back. And I found proof that I've moved on." He took my hand. "That's good proof." "It is." We ate dinner in comfortable silence. The takeout was mediocre, but the company was excellent. "Can I ask you something?" Adrian said. "Anything." "Did you ever think you'd be here? In this place? With this life?" I thought about it. No, I honestly didn't. I thought I'd be married to Nathaniel forever, trying and failing to get him to see me. I thought that was what love looked like. That's what I'd been told, anyway. What changed? I got tired of asking. He leaned over and kissed me, soft and slow. "I'm glad you did." The next year, I turned 48. My mother threw me a party. Penelope flew in from Seattle. Even Sarah, who'd moved to Chicago, came back for the weekend. I stood in my own living room, surrounded by people who loved me, and felt something I'd never felt before. Complete. Claire was chasing the cat around the couch. Adrian was talking to my father about something that made them both laugh. Penelope was drinking wine and arguing with Sarah about something meaningless. It was chaos. Perfect, beautiful chaos. And I was at the center of it, not as the person who was supposed to be grateful for scraps, but as the person who'd built this life. "Happy birthday," my mother said, handing me a glass of champagne. "You look happy." "I am," I said. "I really am." "Do you ever think about Nathaniel?" The question took me by surprise. Sometimes. Not as much anymore. He died 2 years ago. I know you went to the funeral. I did. Do you think he would have been proud of you? I considered the question. I don't think he would have known how to be proud of me. He didn't know how to see me, not really. But I think he would have tried. And that's enough. My mother nodded. "You've come a long way, Ellie." I had help. I know. But you also did the hard work. I thought about that. The hard work of leaving. The hard work of staying gone. The hard work of learning to trust again, even when everything in me screamed that it wasn't safe. And I realized that the person I'd become was someone I could be proud of. That summer, Adrian and I went on vacation. A small beach town in Maine, just the two of us for a week. Claire stayed with my parents, which was terrifying and liberating in equal measure. I can't remember the last time I went on a vacation that wasn't someone else's crisis, I said, lying on the beach. Adrian laughed. That's a depressing thought. It's true, though. Every trip I took with Nathaniel, he was either leaving early or worrying about something. I never got to just relax. Then relax now. I closed my eyes and felt the sun on my face. The waves were gentle, the air was warm, and for the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for something to go wrong. On the last night, we walked along the boardwalk. The lights were coming on, and the carnival was setting up. It was the kind of scene that usually felt too perfect to be real. "It's a good life," Adrian said. "Better than good." "Any regrets?" I thought about it. No, not anymore. He stopped walking and turned to face me. "Ellie, I've been thinking about something." "What is it?" "Claire's going to grow up. She's going to leave one day. And then it's going to be just us again. Are you okay with that?" I looked at him. This man who'd never made me ask, who'd never made me wait, who'd shown up every single day without needing to be reminded. "I'm more than okay with that," I said. "I'm looking forward to it." He smiled and took my hand. Good. We walked back to the hotel in comfortable silence, the kind of silence that wasn't empty but full. The following year, I started writing, not for work, but for myself to a journal. At first, then something longer. The story of my life, I told myself. The story of how I'd left one life and found another. I didn't show it to anyone. I just wrote. And somewhere along the way, I realized I was telling a story that wasn't just about leaving Nathaniel. It was about finding myself. Penelope found out about it when she was staying at my house. She'd come for Claire's birthday, and she'd found my notebook on the nightstand. "Ellie, this is incredible," she said. "It's just scribbling." "No, it's not. You're a writer. You didn't tell me." I didn't know. She looked at me with that sisterly expression, part awe, part exasperation. "You've been so busy becoming someone you didn't know you could be that you forgot to notice what you were becoming." I didn't have a response to that. Later that week, I came across an article in the newspaper, a name I recognized, Nathaniel's. There was a brief mention of his legacy at the hospital, the work he'd done in his final years, the way he'd turned his life around. The article mentioned his death, his drinking, his rehab. It was honest in a way that surprised me. And at the end, there was a quote from his therapist, the one he dated. He was trying so hard to become the person he should have been all along. I read that sentence 3 times. Then I closed the paper and put it in the recycling. I didn't need to mourn him anymore. I didn't need to forgive him anymore. I just needed to keep living. That night, I told Adrian about the article. Does it bother you? He asked. No. It just reminds me that people can change. Even the ones who hurt you. It doesn't make the hurt okay, but it makes it easier to let go. I sat on the porch and watched the stars. The night was clear and cold. I spent so long being angry, I said. Not angry at him really. Angry at myself for staying, for not knowing better, for letting him make me feel small. And now I'm not angry. I'm just grateful for what I learned, for what I found, for the person I became. Claire came running outside. Mom, come inside. We're making brownies and you have to taste test. I laughed and stood up. Coming. Adrian took my hand. You're a good mother, Ellie. I'm trying. That's all anyone can do. I went inside and I let myself be pulled into the warmth of my family. At some point, I stopped thinking about Nathaniel at all. Not because I'd forgotten, but because he'd become just another part of my history. The woman who'd loved him wasn't me anymore. She was someone I used to know. And I was grateful for her, because she'd been strong enough to walk away, she'd been brave enough to start over. She'd been stubborn enough to keep going, even when she didn't know where she was going. Claire was 10 when I found an old box in the back of the closet. Letters, photographs, things I'd kept from my marriage. I sat on the floor and went through them. There were love letters from Nathaniel, written early in our relationship. They were sweet, if somewhat generic. There were photos of us laughing, eating dinner, standing in front of landmarks I'd forgotten we'd visited. And there was a note, written in my own hand, from the year we'd married. I want to be someone he can love, I'd written. I want to be enough. I read those words and felt a surge of compassion for the woman who'd written them. She'd been so desperate to be loved that she'd lost sight of what mattered most, her own worth. I folded the note and put it in the box. Then I walked to the kitchen and threw the whole thing in the trash. Mom, what are you doing? Claire asked. Letting go of something I don't need anymore. She looked at me with wise eyes. Was it heavy? It used to be, but it's not anymore. I hugged her tight and thought about how lucky I was. In the end, that was the story of my life. Not the leaving, not the healing, not the finding, just the being. Being present, being whole, being me. Adrian came home that evening with takeout and a bottle of wine. You look lighter, he said. I feel lighter. Good. We sat on the porch and watched the sun go down. Claire was inside doing her homework. The cat was sleeping on the chair. What do you want to do next? Adrian asked. Whatever comes. I'm not in a hurry. He smiled. That's the best answer you could have given. I leaned into him and let myself be held. The stars were coming out one by one. The air was warm, smelling of summer. And I thought about all the roads I'd walked to get here. All the wrong turns, the dead ends, the places where I'd almost given up. In the end, I'd found my way. And that was enough.